The story begins as a boy named Liam is reincarnated into a new world in the future, and we learn that he's the sole heir of the Banfield domain. On his 5th birthday, his mother tells him she has a special present for him, but he's confused as he opens it, because he doesn't know what the item is for. So she reveals that it's an order sheet for an AI-made robot, and she tells him he can customize every part of it according to his taste. He notices that he can even customize certain features, which he thinks aren't appropriate for a 5-year-old, but she notes that if he doesn't choose something, his maid won't have that part. So he should choose everything carefully, or else he'll regret it in the future. His father arrives, and he gifts their family's entire domain to Liam, which surprises him, and he realizes that he'll be the new count. His father mentions that they'll be leaving for the Imperial home planet, and gives him complete authority over everything, but in exchange, he asks Liam to send them a regular allowance. He agrees to their condition, and they leave after signing the contract, telling him his new AI mate will take care of him. Liam is happy with his new life, since he has everything he could ever ask for, but he plans to become an evil lord and take advantage of his people. We learn that he's suffered in his previous life, because he found out that his wife was cheating on him with his boss. He realized that his daughter wasn't his own, and he was even framed for stealing money from his company. His health quickly deteriorated after that, and when things seemed to be at their worst, a man called the guide appeared, asking him if he was going to let his wife and boss get away with everything. So he mentions that he wants to get revenge, and seeing his raw emotions makes the guide happy. Liam wishes he had a second chance, so that he can live for himself and ignore everyone else, and the guide notes that he's there to reincarnate him to another world. He shows him some options, and Liam decides on the world with robots and battleships, because it's similar to his favorite video game. He signs the contract, and the guide wishes him luck, while Liam decides to put his own happiness first in his new life. Liam thanks the guide for his second chance, but we see the guide next to his body, mentioning that people as unfortunate as Liam are common, and he looks to Liam's wife for his next entertainment. As she eats with Liam's boss, she thinks about all the years she wasted on Liam, but the police suddenly arrive and reveal that they found evidence that the boss was the one stealing money from the company. So he gets arrested, and Liam's wife falls into despair as she wonders who will take care of her, but the guide notes that she'll never taste happiness again, since the man who loved her is already dead. The guide returns to Liam's apartment, where he thinks about guiding his soul, and he notes that by the time Liam realizes what's happening, it will already be too late. He believes that all of Liam's sorrow and resentment will be directed at him, which will nourish him, and since the lifespans in the other world are even longer, Liam will suffer even more. He looks forward to seeing him struggle in his next life, but as he leaves through a portal, the spirit of Liam's old dog follows him into the other world. We see space pirates attacking a battleship, but Christiana, the princess of the Holy Kingdom of Liba, suddenly arrives to take them on, and her army takes out a quarter of the frontline fleet. So the pirates start retreating, but she orders her army to go after them. Liam finally receives his AI maid, and his butler Brian notes that he's the only one who can open the packaging since it uses a biometric approval. He unlocks it, and he's happy to see his AI maid, who introduces herself as Amagi. Brian mentions that she'll be his personal aide, and she'll serve him 24/7, apart from her weekly maintenance of 2 hours. Liam tests her build quality and notices how soft she is, but it makes Brian uncomfortable, so he takes her to his playroom. After that, Brian notices how comfortable Liam has become with Amagi, but Liam tells him not to worry, because he has the mind of a 36-year-old. But Brian mentions that he's still a child, and Amagi explains that the age of adulthood in the Empire is 50, because most people live for 500 to 600 years. Liam thinks that since lifespans are longer in their world, he has plenty of time to do whatever he wants. Brian asks him to stop spending too much time with an AI maid, because the Empire hates AI, and if he's seen getting close to her, there could be rumors that spread about him. Liam wants to know more about it, so Brian reveals that humanity was once almost wiped out by AI, but a group of brave people fought back to save humanity and created the Empire. Liam wonders why his mother gave him a robot, and Brian hesitates to answer, but Liam tells him to reveal the truth. So Brian notes that his parents abandoned him because their family is burdened with massive debts. He mentions that Liam's great-grandfather brought prosperity to their domain, but his successors failed to follow in his footsteps, so Liam wonders what will happen to his dream of becoming an evil lord. Brian reveals that their creditors have the right to farm resources in their frontier planets, which has reduced their tax collection as the industries fail to profit. So he thinks they have no way of paying back the debt, and things will only continue to get worse, which disappoints Liam. Meanwhile, the commoners of Liam's planet discuss how a 5-year-old is their new lord, and they think he'll impose even more taxes, but the bartender hopes he's a good person. We return to Liam, as he wonders if his parents only gave birth to him so he could inherit their debt, and Brian tells him it's true. So he tells Amati that they're both outcasts, and he suggests teaming up, telling her that he's going to show everyone who's boss. But she rejects his offer, because serving him is her only purpose, and she explains that she isn't an outcast since he needs her. She promises to stay by his side, which makes him happy, and he decides to establish the 3 laws of robotics, which exist to protect humanity. But he changes them slightly, since he no longer cares about other people, and he notes that the first law is that she must never harm her master, or allow him to be harmed through her inaction. The second law is that she must always obey him, except when his orders come into conflict with the first law, and the last one is that she must protect her existence as much as possible. After that, Liam asks her for ideas to revitalize his domain, so she reveals that even though her AI ideas might contradict the Empire's philosophies, she can help him with governance. He notes that he knows nothing about governance, so she advises him to use an education capsule, which can install 10 years of knowledge in 6 months, and strengthen his body. But he wonders what will happen to his domain during that time, and she offers to manage it in his absence. Brian thinks it's a terrible idea, because the Empire won't accept an AI governing, but Amati notes that there's no law against it. So Liam tells Brian to prepare an education capsule, and he puts Amati in charge while he's gone. Before entering the capsule, Liam asks her if she has any emotions, so she notes that she doesn't know what emotions are. But when he asked her to team up, it caused a cache memory overflow in her system, and he tells her to take care of everything as he starts the capsule, which puts him to sleep. The pod eventually opens, and Amati welcomes Liam back, revealing that he's been sleeping for 2 years. She reveals that he has gotten stronger, but he needs rehabilitation to get used to his growing body, and he decides to get it over with. After that, Amati tells him about the current economic condition of the Banfield territory, and he's happy to see that it's improving. He wants to look around, so she takes him to the Banfield Army's spaceport, which impresses him, and she also takes him to the base of the Mobile Knights. He wants to pilot one of them, so she makes the necessary arrangements and explains how it controls basic movements automatically. So he just needs to imagine how he wants the suit to move, and he quickly gets the hang of it, telling her he wants to test his combat skills, so she sets up a mock battle for him. He goes up against a captain named Masita, but Liam realizes that he's holding back, so he orders Masita to fight him seriously. Liam attacks him again, but Masita quickly disarms him and flips him to the ground. Liam is shocked at his defeat, and Amati explains that the suit's movements depend on mental visualization, so experienced fighters like Masita have better control. After that, Liam tells Brian to find him a combat instructor, but Brian tries to convince him that he doesn't need to learn how to fight. But Liam refuses to listen, because he remembers how in his previous life, people used to push him down, so he thinks he needs to get stronger to become an evil lord. Liam meets an instructor named Yasu, who looks like a samurai, so Liam thinks he's the real deal. Amati notes that he looks suspicious, but Liam thinks he carries himself like a proper samurai, who grew detached from the world because he focused on his training. They ask him for a demonstration of his skills, so he stands in the middle of wooden posts and tells Liam about his secret technique called the Way of the Flash. He notes that he won't repeat it, so they must pay attention, and Liam tells Amati to record it, while Yasu gets into position. He starts to draw his sword, and all the pillars are suddenly cut, so Liam is amazed, and he asks Amati about her analysis. But despite slowing down the recording, they're unable to see anything, so Liam thinks he's so fast that even she can't record his move. He accepts Yasu as his master, but we learn that Yasu had already cut the posts, and he faked the whole technique to secure an easy job, which makes the guide happy. Meanwhile, Christiana goes to meet the pirates for peace talks, but their leader Gon mocks her for coming alone. Christiana warns him that the Alliance fleet is ready to attack if he makes a move, but she suddenly gets a report that the pirates have surrounded her planet. So she becomes confused, wondering how they got past the defenses. Gon reveals that there are members of her alliance who aren't loyal to her, because they don't like her country, and she learns that her escort fleet is pointing their weapons at her ship. She can't believe what's happening, and Gon reveals that he paid them to betray her, telling her to listen to him if she wants to save her home planet. 3 years have passed since Liam started his training, but he's still unable to perform his master's technique. So Amagi encourages him to stick to the basics, but he wants to learn the special move. At night, Yasu reads manga in his room, and he can't believe he's making so much money for such an easy job. He wishes it could stay like that forever, but Liam suddenly arrives, so he quickly hides his manga and acts serious. Liam notes that he wants to learn his secret technique, but Yasu threatens to stop teaching him because he had already told him that he would only demonstrate it once. He pretends to be angry, so Liam immediately apologizes and decides to leave, but Yasu is glad that he's gone because he can't teach what he doesn't know. Meanwhile, Christiana is captured by Gon's pirates, and she asks him what he plans to do next, so he tells her he has prepared the best seat for her. She doesn't understand what he means, so he orders his fleet to aim at her planet, and she begs him to stop, but he gives the command to fire, and she watches her planet get destroyed. On Liam's planet, we see that he's frustrated because he can't learn the secret technique, and Amati gives him the monthly report, showing him the graphs of their economy. She notes that their debts haven't changed, but their production and sales are growing, and he's happy with the progress. But she notes that the growth is slower than expected in programs like welfare, so he checks the welfare financial reports and sees a few issues, so he summons the man in charge. Liam tells him that he knows he's been hiding his corruption with fake invoices and changing suppliers, but the man continues to defend himself. Amati reveals that an embezzlement case was opened against him, but he pinned the blame on his subordinate, who was executed without evidence. Liam remembers how he suffered during his past life, so he becomes angry and executes the man on the spot. He tells Amati to execute all the corrupt nobles, but she thinks he should relax, since it's his first execution. He's so shocked that he's unable to drop the sword, so she helps him put it down and explains that if they execute all the corrupt nobles, they will have no one left to do the job for them. She suggests using AI dolls for administration, and he gives her the authority to do whatever she wants, telling her he doesn't care about his reputation. At the bar, everyone talks about how Liam punished corrupt officials and increased the compulsory education from 3 to 6 years. But they're happy that business is booming, and no one could have predicted that he would achieve so much in just 5 years. Liam wants to check his progress after mastering basic sword fighting, but Yasu tells him that standard suits will prevent him from becoming truly exceptional. So he wonders if they have an alternative, and Masita tells him about a personal unit that his great-grandfather used to pilot. We go back to when Yasu looked for things to steal in the storage room, because he knows that Liam has almost mastered swordsmanship, so he thinks he's about to lose his job. He finds an old robot, and thinks he can use it to trick Liam, so that he can keep his job for a bit longer. We return to the present, as Liam tells Brian to repair the Mobile Knight Avid. But Brian can't understand why he insists on using a difficult manual model, or why he's been slashing in the air for days. So Liam notes that he's trying to recreate Yasu's secret technique, and he'll continue to practice until he masters it. Amati goes to check Avid, and she thinks Yasu isn't a sword master, but since Liam wants to use it, she'll do her best to restore it. The next day, Liam and Amati meet the weapon factory's engineer named Niaz, who they call to repair Avid. Niaz notices that Amati is an AI doll, so Liam thinks she might dislike her, but she's thrilled to see such a high-spec android. They take Niaz to Avid, and Liam wonders if she can fix it, but she notes that it's practically dead, so she suggests buying a newer model. But he refuses her offer, telling her he wants to use it, so she warns him that the repairs won't be cheap, because it's so old that they don't have the replacement parts for it. But he doesn't care about the cost, telling her he wants it to be perfect, so she becomes excited and accepts the offer. He tells her to give it special moves like a rocket punch, but she doesn't understand him, so he explains that it's a stylish move, where the fist flies like a rocket. Yasu arrives, and immediately falls in love with Niaz, but when he tries to approach her, she ignores him, since she's busy discussing the rocket punch with Liam. She agrees to fulfill Liam's request, but Yasu becomes jealous, thinking she prefers Liam over him. He takes his revenge by putting Liam through a brutal training regimen, where he balances on a log, while Yasu shoots tennis balls at him. Liam tells him how difficult it is to balance with a blindfold, and his sword is also too heavy, but Yasu explains that he needs to use all of his senses. Meanwhile, Gon tells Christiana that he's taking her to his treasure island, where he'll add her to his collection. He shows her his pet, but a scientist notes that she's dead, so they throw her into outer space, and Gon notes that Christiana will replace her. He plans to carve out her eyes and implant them in her hand, so that she can watch her body being disfigured like his other pets. The locals on Liam's planet are happy that the economy has improved, and one of them mentions that things were even better during his grandfather's time. But they're still satisfied with the progress so far, thinking Liam is doing an excellent job. Niaz finishes restoring Avid, and she shows it to Liam, who tells him she did an excellent job. She takes him to the control room to show him how it works, and the robot scans his body, registering him as its pilot, so he's the only one who can control it. But when he takes over the controls, it suddenly collapses, and she explains that unlike modern mobile knights, it has no auto-balance function, so it's difficult to pilot. but Liam manages to bring it upright, and he moves it out of the base, which makes her realize that he has talent. She explains that his imagination is important for operating the machine, so he should focus on what he wants to do next, but he can't think of anything other than her huge personality. So his mech does what he's thinking, and she realizes that he's having bad thoughts about her. Yasu is angry that he stole his crush, but Brian is happy that Liam is finally showing interest in a human girl. He tries to explain that he isn't a pervert, but the mech starts performing another strange move, which enrages Yasu. Liam returns to training, but he still can't perform Yasu's technique, so he thinks he doesn't have the talent. Amagi reassures him that the problem is with Yasu's teaching, and tells Liam to question how much he trusts him. But he misunderstands her, thinking the problem is that he doesn't have enough faith in Yasu. He remembers that magic exists in their world, and he thinks he can use it to cut something without touching it. He practices how to use his magic power for months, and he finally learns the technique, so he demonstrates it to Yasu. He easily cuts a post in half, which shocks Yasu, because he thinks it's impossible, but he maintains his facade, and tells Liam that he still has a lot to learn. After that, Amagi tells Liam that the pirates are attacking his only resource planet called Muke, which wasn't seized by his debtors. She explains that the Empire didn't take it because its environment is poor and mining is difficult, but she mentions that she built a plant there, which has generated profit for him. He realizes that the plant is under attack by the pirates, and they don't know how long their military can hold them back, so he asks her if she has a strategy. She suggests attacking from the planet's blind spot while using the horizon as cover, and she notes that during the gravity turn, they can tuck in with the arrow brakes to surprise the pirates from above. Liam decides to go with her plan and orders everyone to prepare for battle, telling them to capture the pirate ships while he defends the plant. Brian thinks it's too dangerous for Lord to fight pirates on the front lines, but Liam refuses to let anyone steal from him, and he also wants to show off his new skills. Liam's fleet soon reaches Muke, and Niaz is excited that he's using Avid for the first time, because it will give her important data for her research. He manages to land a surprise attack by using the clouds as cover, and he easily takes out multiple mobile knights without taking damage. The pirates disperse and try to sneak up on him, but he cuts them down, and he repeats his master's words, saying that one shouldn't rely on the body and see with the mind's eye. The pirates start shooting lasers at him, so he takes out his beam rifle and fires at them with perfect accuracy. So they think he must have a strong radar, and they realize they don't stand a chance if they keep hiding, so they try to overpower him by charging all at once. But he uses his master's secret technique and destroys all of them from a distance. They realize they're no match for him, so they start retreating, and Liam decides to use his special move. But instead of a standard rocket punch, a huge missile launches toward them, which frustrates him, since it wasn't what he had in mind. Amagi contacts him, and she reveals that they were only able to capture 10% of the pirate ships, telling him 60% of them escaped, while 30% were destroyed. But he's still happy with their first victory, and he tells her it's thanks to her brilliant strategy, which makes her feel honored. Goem learns that the pirates he sent to raid Muke failed their mission, so he becomes angry and orders his fleet to execute the cowards who retreated, to set them as an example for others. He tells Christiana that he'll be back to have fun with her, and we see that he has already conducted his cruel experiments on her. Meanwhile, Amagi tells Liam about their successful mission, and he's pleased with the outcome. She notes that they seized multiple pirate ships, and explains that under the Imperial law, they now own the ships and the stolen loot in them. Liam is disappointed since they couldn't find gold or diamonds, but Brian reveals that they aren't considered precious in this world, and the metals found in the pirate ships are far more valuable. Liam still wants gold, and Brian notes that they already have enough, so he orders them to create gold coins with it, and use the other precious metals to create weapons. But Brian explains that they can't do it, because they don't have an expert blacksmith. Amagi tells him that she found a problem during their last battle, and reveals that the Banfield family has about 10,000 battleships, but only 30% are combat ready. Liam can't believe they defeated the pirates with only 30% of their fleet, so she explains that they won because the pirates underestimated them, but he thinks her strategy played a crucial role. He isn't happy that over 70% of his ships can't be used, and Amagi suggests scrapping all of them, but Brian is against it, because he believes that a fleet is all about numbers, so it will make them look vulnerable to their enemies. She suggests selling the metals from the pirates, and using the profits to buy used ships, but Brian once again objects, because he thinks a fleet reflects the family. But Liam decides to go with her suggestion, because it was his father's vanity that led their family to so much debt. Meanwhile, Niaz delivers a presentation where she reveals her company's latest model, and she brags about how it's superior to the other battleships. But her competitor Ulyssia presents her company's latest design, and unlike Nia's ship, which focuses on practicality, it's designed for comfort and entertainment. The Imperial Army chooses Ulyssia's design, and Nia's notes that her model is stronger, but Ulyssia argues that both ships are great since they're made by experts. She explains that the true strength of a warship depends on its user, and the more comfortable the crew is, the more focused they can be on the mission. After the presentation, Ulyssia boasts about winning, but Nia refuses to give up since she's invested a lot into the project. She thinks her boss will yell at her for failing, but she suddenly remembers Liam, who prefers practicality over comfort. Meanwhile, the guide continues to feed off everyone's negative emotions, and he thinks Liam must have already failed in his new world. But when he heads to his planet, he's surprised to see that it's thriving, so he wonders if he made a mistake. But he recalls that he had sent the worst sword instructor he could find, and even made Liam inherit his family's debt. At the bar, the locals talk about how Liam defeated the pirates, but Yasu mentions that one of his students has disappointed him by becoming even better than him. The guide becomes confused hearing this, and he checks on Liam, who's currently practicing his special move with Amagi. He asks her to compare his move with his master, and she finds it quite similar, but he thinks Yasu intentionally didn't go all out so that he could learn his technique. He looks back on his life and how his parents abandoned him with a huge debt, so he thought things would only get worse. But his life eventually improved, and he even became a skilled swordsman, thinking it was all thanks to the guide. The guide hates seeing Liam's positivity, which is like poison to him, but he survives thanks to Yasu's negative emotions. He wonders if he reincarnated Liam to the wrong place, but he thinks it's impossible and believes that Liam will suffer in the end. Amagi tells Liam that the Imperial Army is upgrading its fleet and selling old models at a discount. But she mentions that there's a condition where the buyer must also accept the current crew members because the Empire is trying to get rid of unwanted personnel. She mentions that it would cost a lot, but they can manage it, and she notes that the experienced officers would be useful. The guide hears everything, and he plans to send serious and earnest soldiers who won't tolerate the actions of an evil lord, so that they'll turn against Liam. Yasu is still recovering from his hangover, but Nia suddenly arrives, and she praises him for turning Liam into a first-rate swordsman. Yasu thinks she's falling for him, but she asks him about Liam's taste, and he misunderstands her, thinking she's openly flirting with him, so he reveals all of his fetishes. The next day, Nia shows up before Liam, and she's wearing the outfit Yasu described. He realizes that she wants to sell something, so she confesses that she's there to sell her battleships, but he tells her that he already bought old ships from the Imperial Army. She mentions that she failed in her presentation, so he's her only hope, and he needs to buy at least 100 or 200 of them. She notes that he doesn't need to pay for it up front, but Liam refuses to fall into debt again, so she tries to seduce him. But he recalls how his wife also bought such dresses, and she never wore them while she was with him, so he wonders if they were for his boss. He takes pity on her, and decides to buy 300 ships, so Nias promises to deliver them right away. After that, Nias contacts her coworker, and she claims that she made the sale thanks to her charm, but her friend refuses to believe her since she's so stiff. Brian and Yasu overhear their conversation, and Brian thinks his master fell into a honey trap, while Yasu thinks Liam got lucky with her. Liam receives the ships he purchased from Nias and the Imperial Army, but Yasu is still angry at him for stealing his girl, and the guide notices his hatred for Liam. He needs him to build up even more anger, so that he can take it out on Liam later and create a huge negative emotion. Liam and Amagi visit their new warships, and even though he doesn't regret his decision to buy them, he understands why the Empire chose the other models, because Nias' ships aren't as luxurious. So she argues that luxury has no place in combat, but he notes that people still prefer comfortable ships. She tells him about the maintenance needs, and offers an extended warranty, but Liam declines it. She requests that he give her a few of the pirate ships, but he refuses, since he wants to add them to his fleet. Amagi suggests giving Nias a small portion of them, but she must convert the rest of them to work with their fleet. She accepts the deal, because she wants to study the pirate ships, and she notes that standardizing them is easy compared to getting data from the pirate tech. Liam comes up with an idea, and he decides to check the pirate ships, but they're completely different from the battleships he's used so far. Nias is also amazed by the pirate tech, but he spots a steering wheel and tells her to add one to his ship. She thinks it's useless compared to standard controls, but he notes that it looks cool, so he doesn't care if it's inefficient. Nias explores the ship and learns that it has gravity lasers that operate in the imaginary plane, while the ether generator uses the opposite phase. While she looks around, Liam sees a dog, and he follows it to the ship's navigation room. Amagi powers it up and explains that the navigation room records every route the ship has taken, telling him it has been raiding all across the Empire. But she notices that every time they finish looting a planet, they warp out to one of the gates in the Empire's border area, where the Empire and other nations are engaged in combat. He realizes that it's a lawless area outside the reach of the Empire's control, so it's a perfect hideout for them, and he asks for the coordinates, but she mentions that they shift every time. But she notes that there appears to be a pattern, and thinks the hideout isn't a tiny rogue planet, but because of its strange orbit, it's impossible to reach the base without knowing its exact location. Liam believes it isn't a base, but a treasure island where the pirates stash their loot, and he decides to go on a treasure hunt. Meanwhile, Gon meets the survivors from Liam's earlier battle, and he's shocked that they lost to such a low-ranking noble. He orders his men to prepare for war against the Banfields, but before leaving, he kills the pirates who lost to Liam. Liam's fleet prepares to attack the treasure planet, but Amagi tells him that they need to pass through the Domus Warp Gate to reach the Pomona Gate near the border. She requests clearance, but they aren't allowed to enter, and the manager explains that to use the gate, they must pay a toll that will be based on their number and jump length. Liam assures him that they'll pay it later, but the manager tells him that he must pay up front, because the Banfield House is known for its huge unpaid debts. He also mentions that they can pass if someone trustworthy writes them a letter of credit, but their family unfortunately doesn't have good relations with the other nobles. Liam tries to persuade him, but he doesn't listen, so he decides to talk to him in person, and Amagi isn't sure if it will make a difference, but Liam is confident in his negotiation skills. Meanwhile, Gon and his fleet reach the Pomona Gate, planning to warp to the Domus Gate and destroy everything Liam has built. Liam goes to see the manager, but he refuses to let him pass without payment, so he lies that he needs to meet his mother, who's in critical condition. But the manager knows that he's lying, since he brought an entire fleet of warships with him. The manager suddenly receives a message that Gon's fleet is coming, so he tells Liam he has other matters to attend to, while Liam sees the dog spirit again, so he decides to follow it. The manager and his men set up a wormhole connection for the pirates, and one of his men realizes that it may put the pirates face to face with Liam's fleet. But the manager doesn't care, and they all decide to turn a blind eye. Liam arrives at the control room, but he notices that it's empty, so he thinks the manager intentionally left it unattended after setting up a connection to Pomona. But he realizes the wormhole is flowing in the opposite direction, so he adjusts the controls, which messes with the active wormhole, trapping the pirates inside it. Amagi tells him to return to the ship, because she's secured a letter of credit, which surprises him, wondering who could have helped them. So she reveals that it was Nia's weapon factory, which offered it because he bought their new model, and gave them pirate ships to study. Liam's fleet goes through the warp gate, and emerges at the Pomona Gate, from where they make a short jump to the treasure planet. Gon's fleet remains trapped in the wormhole, and they notice that they have exceeded the expected travel time, which makes them anxious. They finally make it out, but they find themselves in the training space for the Imperial War Fleet, where they're surrounded by 70,000 ships. Liam's fleet arrives at the rogue planet, and Amagi tells him that even though there are about 20,000 pirate ships, most of them are inactive. She thinks they should launch their surprise attack, so he orders all of his ships to attack the pirate fleet, and he also gets on his mobile knight. He starts destroying the pirates, who are no match for him, and he easily dodges their attacks, before taking them out with his rocket punch. After that, Amagi mentions that they have eliminated most of the pirates, so he tells her to send his mobile knights to clean the place up. We go back to when Christiana returned to the kingdom after repelling the space pirates, and her parents congratulate her, acknowledging her role in protecting their kingdom's peace. Her brother Rickard is jealous because she enjoys all the glory, while everyone thinks he's avoiding responsibility. But she tells him that he's the future crown prince, so he shouldn't put himself on the front lines. Their younger sister wonders if she can also become a knight like her, so Christiana promises to teach her sword fighting when she grows up. But we return to the moment her planet was destroyed, and her family realizes that they've been betrayed, since they had a defense line consisting of Alliance warships. The pirates continue attacking, and the shield around the palace is destroyed, resulting in a massive explosion. After that, we see Christiana restrained inside Gon's ship, along with the other prisoners, and she tries to assure them that the resistance forces will rescue them. Gon arrives with the scientist, and she tells him to kill her, since she prefers death over humiliation, but she tells him to free the others in exchange. He notes that if he wanted to kill her, he wouldn't have gone through all the trouble, and he tells her they're all his pets. But he decides to fulfill part of her request, asking her to choose which prisoner he should release. So she picks one of the girls, but instead of freeing her, he takes her to his lab, where he experiments on her instead. Christiana reminds him that he promised to free her, but he mentions that pirates don't keep their promises, and he tells the scientist to start the operation. He brings out his monstrous arms to begin the experiment, and she becomes horrified, begging him to stop. But he reveals that if they don't finish the operation, the girl won't survive, so Christiana starts crying and ends up passing out. When Christiana wakes up, Gon tells her to look at her friend, who wonders what happened to her. He mentions that he'll transform her into something even better, which shocks her, and she asks him why he's doing this to them. So he explains that it's fun to see a beauty turn ugly and fall into despair, which enrages her, but she can't do anything to stop him. He puts her in the chair, and despite her pleas to do anything he wants, he doesn't show any mercy. He wonders what happened to the brave girl who was asking him to kill her, and he reveals that he chose her to be the second subject, so that he could see true fear in her eyes. He tells the scientist to remove her eyes, and put them in her palms, so that she can see herself becoming ugly. After the experiment, Christiana asks the scientist to kill her, but he refuses to do it, since she's the captain's favorite, telling her it won't be fun if she gives up so easily. But they're suddenly attacked by Liam's fleet, so the scientist runs to the control room, where he learns that most of their ships were destroyed. Liam enters one of the warships, destroying the enemy mobile knights, and a soldier informs him that they've defeated most of the pirates. Liam tells him to clean up the rest, while searching for the treasure room, but he suddenly sees his dog's spirit, which leads him to the scientist and his men. He tells them to hand over the treasure, but the scientist thinks he wants a pet like Gon, so he takes him to his lab. Liam's men struggle to keep themselves composed after witnessing such a heartbreaking sight, and as Liam sees Christiana, the scientist notes that she's Gon's favorite. He starts bragging about his creation, but Liam remembers how he's suffered during his past life, and shoots the scientist. He's about to leave, but Christiana asks him who they are, so he introduces himself, telling her he has taken control and killed the scientist who tortured them. She starts crying and begs him to kill her with the other subjects, because they can't live as humans after what they have gone through, but he refuses to do it and tells her that he'll save her. He tells the guards to bring medics, and a soldier asks him if he'll really save them, because regenerating their bodies using elixir is ridiculously expensive. Liam notes that it's against his principles of becoming an evil lord, but he can't just ignore them, and Amagi tells him that they've found the treasure, so they don't have to worry about the cost. Meanwhile, the guide continues to feed on negative emotions, but he isn't satisfied, so he wants to see Liam's suffering. Nias comes to meet Liam, and she congratulates him on his victory, but to celebrate, she asks him to buy battleships from her. He mentions that he surprised the pirates while their main fleet was away, so they didn't suffer many losses, and they don't need more ships. But she reminds him that she provided him with a letter of credit, which helped him get there, so he decides to buy from her, asking Amagi if they can afford more warships with the treasure. So she tells him that after paying debts and setting aside the administrative budget, they can afford another 5,000 ships. Nias thanks him for buying thousands of ships and runs away, but he chases after her, telling her he didn't agree to that. In the hall, Yasu wonders what excuse he should use to get more money from Liam, but he stops as he sees Nias, who informs her manager about the sale of 5,000 ships. She lies to him that she made the deal after sacrificing her pride, which enrages Yasu, and Liam looks for her, but Yasu calls him outside, since he wants to punish him for going after his girl. He puts a blindfold over Liam's eyes, and places weight on his sword, before launching hundreds of balls towards him. He fails to defend himself, but Yasu increases the intensity even more, telling him he'll bring shame to the way of the Flash if he can't get rid of them. Liam thinks it's impossible to defend against so many attacks, but Yasu tells him that nothing is impossible in their world, and Liam realizes that he can use magic to defend himself. He creates a magical shield around him, which deflects all of the balls, and destroys the drones that were shooting at him. Yasu is amazed at Liam's achievement, but he's worried that Liam might kill him if he discovers that he's a fraud, because he's been killing the corrupt officials and pirates. So he tells Liam that he has nothing left to teach him, but he should continue training on his own. He insists on continuing their lessons, but Yasu notes that Liam can't rely on him forever, and he leaves after declaring that Liam is a master of the way of the Flash, which makes him honored. Yasu runs away in fear, while Liam looks back on all the progress he's made, and he once again thanks the guide who reincarnated him. Liam isn't satisfied with his progress, because he wants to be an oppressive ruler, who enjoys watching his subjects suffer, and Brian finds it a strange ambition. Liam notes that he wants to settle his debt, and Amagi thinks he's talking about money, but he explains that he wants to make up for the humiliation he suffered in his past life. Brian mentions that it will take them a while to get the exact value of the pirate's treasure, because there's so much appraisal work to be done, but Liam is upset that he's being ignored. Liam thinks about what it takes to become an evil lord, and he believes he's already learned Yasu's special technique, so he's now a master swordsman, but he still lacks money and women. A merchant named Thomas arrives from the Henfrey Trading Company, and he thanks Liam for defeating the pirates. He gives Liam gold as a reward, which makes him happy, and he wonders what Thomas needs in return. He explains that his company passes through dangerous space to conduct trade, so he asks for 100 ships from Liam's fleet to escort them, because they're afraid that the pirates will attack them. Amagi notes that Liam's new battleships are ready for deployment, and she also thinks it will be a good learning opportunity for his men. So he agrees to help Thomas, but he demands more gold for the protection, and Thomas agrees to his condition. On their way home, Thomas notices the progress in Liam's domain, and he thinks Liam is an exceptional ruler who uses the tax income for the benefit of his people. The driver wonders why he always demands gold, and Thomas is also clueless, but he doesn't mind it because it costs him less. Brian is happy that Liam has reached a position where people offer him bribes, but he doesn't understand why Liam prefers gold, so he explains that gold is the symbol of the newly rich. He tells Amagi to prepare a gold bath for him, and Brian thinks he'll be using gold because of its hypoallergenic properties. But Liam explains that it isn't the reason, and he realizes that the only thing he's missing is a harem, so he decides to gather women from his domain. Liam goes to his newly remodeled room, where he wants to have an entire pond filled with alcohol and meat hanging from his pillars. Amagi tells him that she can't stop him because he's the head of the house, but she warns him that filling a pool with alcohol will release dangerous fumes, which could cause an explosion. Brian also advises him against hanging meat from the ceiling because it would be unhygienic, and Amagi agrees, telling him about its disadvantages, so he realizes they were bad ideas. But he notes that he won't give up on creating a harem, and they both support him, as Brian notes that he should produce an heir, because the Banfield house is finished if anything happens to him. He tells them to invite beautiful women, and he'll personally select the ones he likes, so Brian asks him how large his harem will be. He thinks 100 women will be enough for him, but Brian wonders how he can be satisfied with only 100, and Amagi tells him she picked out 10,000 candidates. She thinks he would invite at least 1,000 women, but he finds it crazy because he thinks it's pointless to have that many. Brian explains how interacting with different women will help him find one that he genuinely connects with, reminding him that he's never even been with a woman. He notes that he has Amagi, but she reminds him that she can't bear his children, and he tells her it doesn't matter because he thinks she's perfect. Brian advises him to at least meet the ones they've selected, and he's sure most women would love to join him since he's their ruler. He notes that he can't accept any woman who isn't submissive and breedable, which makes Brian question if he's even serious about building the harem. After that, Liam goes outside, thinking he's mostly been in the mansion and hasn't even explored his own domain. As he walks in the streets, he notices a girl and asks her out, but she immediately agrees, which catches him off guard. He notices a bubble forming around her nose, and she tells him it's the latest color, and he sees that almost everyone's wearing it, so he realizes it's in fashion. Liam returns wearing a nose balloon, but he finds it stupid and tells Amagi to ban it in his domain. He wonders what happened to the fashion in their world, because he was expecting beautiful girls in sci-fi costumes, but they're wearing bizarre animal costumes to the beach, which expose no skin. Amagi explains that full-body swimsuits are in style, because they block UV rays, and they're part of their culture. But Liam refuses to accept it, and suggests developing better fashion, because he can't bring any woman dressed like that. He tells Amagi to gather fashion designers and models, because he thinks that if commoners see models wearing the new styles, they will follow the trend. She explains that their debt makes it impossible, because signing a contract with someone that famous would surpass their entire annual budget. Liam realizes he can't change the planet's fashion, so he decides to gather beautiful women from his domain and dress them the way he wants. He notices that Amagi looks upset, and he notes that he won't change his decision, but she mentions that she already hired the most attractive people as his staff. She asks him if she should call someone, but Liam mentions that he can't get in the mood with an employee, and he becomes exhausted, thinking it's difficult to become an evil lord. Meanwhile, Christiana wakes up in a medical center, where the doctor explains that her body was recreated using regenerative medicine. She touches her face and begins to cry, thinking she must be dreaming because she's been suffering in her inhuman form for decades. The doctor assures her it isn't a dream and explains that they used elixir, which shocks Christiana because she knows that it's a precious drug. The doctor tells her she still needs to go through rehabilitation, but she thinks it must be a mistake because her homeland was destroyed, so she can't pay them back. But the doctor reveals that Count Liam Banfield built the facility and they'll be treated free of charge. She notes that he wants Christiana to repay the favor, and she remembers seeing him on the ship, realizing he's her savior, so she wants to serve him in the future. At the local bar, everyone's happy that Liam got more treasure from the pirates, and he's developing the local industries. They thank him for all the recent progress, but the guide hears them, and their happiness makes him suffer. He notes that according to his plan, Liam's planet should be covered with debt and poverty, and he wonders how it became so well developed. Meanwhile, the soldiers from the Imperial Army who came to Liam's fleet discuss how the ships lack elegance, but they're still practical. They're glad to be part of the Banfield House, because nobles used to interfere with their old job and told them to free the pirates, while Liam seems like a fair ruler. The guide sees them praise Liam, and he wonders how they changed their loyalties so fast, since they're supposed to hate him. Yasu is happy with the reward he received from Liam, but as he relaxes, he's shocked to hear the news about the Imperial Fleet's admiral, who congratulated Liam on his recent success. He credited his victory to Yasu for teaching him the way of the Flash, but it makes him angry, because he wants to live an ordinary life away from the spotlight. The guide can't believe Liam became an expert swordsman, because he sent the worst instructor to train him, and he thinks it doesn't make sense. Meanwhile, we see the Gon space pirates who have regrouped after fleeing the Imperial fleet, and Gon asks for the report on their numbers. So he's told that around 30,000 ships are left, while the 2,000 ships they used as decoys were lost to the Imperial Army. He becomes angry at the Warp Gate administration because they sent him to the Imperial Army's practice space, and he decides to attack them. But the guide suddenly arrives, and he brainwashes Gon, telling him to attack Liam because he's the real enemy. Gon is angry that Liam attacked his treasure island, and he orders his men to move towards the Banfield territory, telling them to destroy anyone who resists. Meanwhile, in Liam's mansion, his new AI mates help him eat food, but Amagi notices that he doesn't look happy. He tells her he's thinking about what an evil lord's meal should look like, but she doesn't understand him. So he describes it as involving hearty laughter with subordinates, while women are forced to serve alcohol and meat. She wonders if he still wants to hang meat from the ceiling, or if he wants to form a mountain of meat, but he tells her it's a waste of food. She notes that they can invite the officials for dinner, but he doesn't like to discuss work while he's eating, so she thinks he needs a woman to accompany him during his meals. But he thinks she won't like it, so she explains that she isn't a woman, but an AI robot, telling him she can't bear his children. But he isn't interested in the standard definition of a woman, asking her if she's okay if he finds someone he wants to spend his life with. So she assures him that even though she has no emotions, his happiness is her top priority. After that, Amagi gives him a detailed report on their economy, and she mentions that with increased debt repayment, they're paying less interest. But he wonders how huge their debt is, because even the pirates' treasure wasn't enough to cover it. She tells him that their economy is slowly improving, and they'll soon repay all of their debt, but he notes that he can't become an evil lord because of it. She wonders what he wants to do as an evil lord, so he tells her he wants to increase taxes and make everyone suffer, but she notes that it wouldn't be sustainable for the long term. She explains that if their region's economy suffers, it will affect their ability to pay their debt, which makes him remember how he was traumatized by debt collectors in his previous life. She wonders if he isn't satisfied with his life, so he explains that it isn't the case, because he has money and power flowing his way, and he even has her by his side. She notes that even though she can't understand things like ambition and dreams, she'll always support him, which makes him happy. Meanwhile, the AI mates clean the room, but they think they're wasting their time cleaning the abandoned rooms, and they wonder why Liam made them with max specs. They think he's impressive, because he named all of them, and he can recognize them despite their similar appearance. One of them mentions that when she tried to copy another maid's hairstyle, Liam called her by her name and asked her why she was imitating another maid. She reveals that she recorded everything, and she's keeping the video as her personal treasure, but Amagi orders her to delete it, because it might harm his reputation. One of the maids wonders if it's alright for Amagi to be close to him, since the people in the Empire don't like AI, so she explains that it isn't her choice, and she's just following their master's orders. Brian rushes to tell Liam that the pirates have declared war on them, and their ships are already gathering on the edge of the system. But Liam finds it strange that instead of attacking directly, the pirates are declaring war first, so Amagi thinks it might be because they raided the treasure island. She believes that they're after revenge, so they want to scare him, telling him they won't be satisfied with just killing him. Liam calls a meeting, where Brian tells everyone that there's a huge bounty on the leader of the Gon pirates, and he notes that Gon has asked for all their assets and hostages as part of their surrender. But it enrages Liam, because Gon is stealing his dream of becoming the evil lord. One of his officials advises him to negotiate, and Brian adds that the enemies have around 30,000 modified warships, while they only have 5,000 battleships. The general thinks numbers aren't everything, and there's no guarantee that the pirates will remain peaceful if they surrender. But the official thinks they can't win by fighting the pirates head-on, so he suggests waiting for the Imperial Army's reinforcements. Liam isn't interested in taking them on, because even though Gon has a big bounty on his head, it isn't enough to risk everything and face 30,000 ships. Amagi mentions that she's analyzed the pirate ship data, and based on her calculations, they only have a 3.8% chance of winning against them. Brian wishes that Nia's company had finished their latest weapon so that they could have a chance to defend themselves, but the guide suddenly arrives, and everyone freezes except Liam. The guide reveals that he called the pirates, and he reminds Liam about his family's debt, telling him he can use the pirates' treasure to pay for it. Liam notes that he's already taken it, but the guide mentions that it's only a small portion, telling him they're carrying an even bigger treasure, and defeating them will also earn him great honor. Liam is excited that the guide has planned everything for him, and after he leaves, Liam tells everyone to prepare for war against the pirates. They think he's being reckless because they don't have the resources to take on such a powerful enemy, but he doesn't care, telling them to follow his orders. The guide goes to a bakery, where he tries to feed on a girl's disappointment as her favorite croissant runs out before her turn. But his plan fails, as the staff brings another tray of freshly baked croissant, so he becomes angry. But he reassures himself that he still has Liam, who will soon fulfill his thirst for negative emotions. Amagi contacts Brian, and he's sad that just when their domains started to make progress, they're being attacked by the pirates. Amagi tells him they haven't lost the battle yet, and even though they have a low chance of winning, it's still better than surrendering to Gon, because he's known to wipe out planets. The guide wants Liam to be captured by the pirates, so that he can become Gon's toy, and his gratitude will turn to hatred, which the guide looks forward to consuming. Gon learns that Liam's fleet is arranged in a defensive formation, which impresses him, and he tells everyone that whoever captures Liam will receive double the reward. Meanwhile, Liam is bored as he waits for his enemy to make the first move, but the soldiers tell him they can't afford to be reckless, because they have limited resources. He wonders how they're struggling even though they haven't started fighting yet, so a soldier explains that in space, being able to see the enemy means they're in close combat. They're suddenly disturbed by a warning that 500 ships are attacking them from above, but Liam learns that the ships belong to soldiers, who surrendered after being defeated by the pirates. Liam realizes they're just pawns, and we learn that anyone captured by the pirates is killed if they disobey orders, so they had no choice but to switch sides. Amagi thinks they shouldn't trust the soldiers who changed sides and joined the pirates, so Liam decides to take them out. In the enemy flagship, Gon learns that their advance team was wiped out, which impresses him, and he orders his men to attack Liam's fleet, as he notices a small opening in their formation. But they suddenly retreat, and Gon thinks they're running for their lives, so he orders his men to charge. But it turns out to be a trap, and we learn that Liam's ships placed invisible mines in the area, which start destroying Gon's fleet. But he ignores the danger, and orders his men to continue advancing, because they're using their expendable allies in the front rows. The commander of Liam's fleet suggests that they also use a similar strategy and protect the main ship, but Liam rejects the idea because he doesn't want to sacrifice his men. He tells Amagi that he's going out with Avid, which worries the commander, but Liam tells him to be quiet and orders Amagi to lead the fleet in his absence. She quickly analyzes the situation and orders everyone to charge forward, while Liam tells them to obey her command. He gets in his mobile knight, and she orders their fleet to charge at full speed, which worries the soldiers. But she explains that without Liam, they have no reason to protect their flagship, which is the strongest in their fleet, so the best option is to use it to protect him. They're impressed by her loyalty, and issue orders to deploy all the mobile knights to cover Liam as he takes off with Avid. He promises to make the pirates regret their decision to fight him, and he activates the warp drive, which shocks the pirates. They wonder if it's a suicide attack, but they're surprised to see only a single mobile knight, and Liam dodges their lasers as he destroys multiple ships. The pirates send out their mobile knights to fight him, but he easily cuts through them, and he finds them boring. He takes out his cannons to shoot down several enemy ships, creating an opening, while Amagi decides to take advantage of it, and goes right through the center of the pirate fleet. He continues firing, but he runs out of ammunition, and a pirate knight suddenly attacks him from behind. They start fighting, and the knight asks him about his fighting style, so he mentions that he's a student of the Way of the Flash. But the knight notes that he's never heard of it, so it must be fake, which enrages Liam, and he decides to show him his true power. He finishes him off with his special move, but he soon realizes that if he kills everyone, there will be no one left to spread his name through the universe, so he considers sparing some of the skilled fighters. Gon can't believe how such a poor house can afford to hire a skilled knight, which makes Liam angry, because they are poor. He takes out his anger by using his special technique, which obliterates the knights around him, and he repeats the move to take out the enemies in his path. But it damages the actuators in his arm, since Avid can't keep up with his power. Another group of knights comes towards Liam, and he thinks it's the worst possible time for an injury, but he refuses to give up. He struggles to fight them off, and his sword breaks, as Amagi realizes that their chances of victory have dropped to 1.2%. But as he gets surrounded by mobile knights, Christiana suddenly arrives to support him. Amagi thinks she came earlier than expected, and the doctor explains that even though her patients haven't fully recovered yet, they decided to join Liam. Ulyssia notes that Christiana is using a mobile knight from her factory, and tells Amagi she can order it if she likes it. But Niaz wonders what Ulyssia is doing there, so she notes that a good salesperson can always sense the winner. Christiana orders her team to rush forward, and they defeat the mobile knights in their path, which makes her happy, because she can finally repay her debt to Liam and get her revenge on the pirates. He sees her destroying enemy ships, and thinks she's quite skilled, but he doesn't want anyone to outshine him. So he combines his rocket punch with his ultimate technique, and takes out countless enemy ships in an instant. Gon can't believe his battleships are being wiped out by a single knight, while Amagi notes that their chances of victory have increased to 83% because Liam has divided the pirate fleet. He slices through the pirate mobile knights, and he thinks they're weak, but he looks forward to getting the reward after he defeats them. Christiana is thrilled to see him slaughtering his enemies, and she enjoys killing the pirates, while her former teammates note that she's changed. Amagi looks at the radar, and she warns Liam that enemy mobile knights are approaching him, so he thanks her and rushes to face them. They fire multiple missiles at him, but he blocks them with his shield, and the soldiers watch him as he leads them from the front. One of them mentions how Liam's parents abandoned him at a young age, but he didn't lose hope, and took care of his people. They recall how they were kicked out of the Imperial Army for exposing corruption in the Empire, so they never thought they would serve under such a great ruler, who genuinely cares for his people. Liam sees Gon's ship, and he fires missiles at it, but the shield fleet protects it. He considers using a short-range warp to jump across it, but he realizes that he can't use it, because they have a jammer. Amagi orders all the ships to charge forward at full speed, so that they can break the enemy's shield, telling them to aim at the same point, and fire simultaneously. They synchronize their attacks, and create a hole in the shield, which allows Liam to pass through before the pirates can restore it. Gon sees Avid, and he wonders what it is, so his friend tells him it's the old mobile knight that defeated them at the resource planet. The pirates realize that it's charging towards them, so Gon wonders where his mercenary knights are. But most of them were already defeated by Liam's forces, and the rest are busy restoring the shield. Gon's friend wonders what they should do next, and he notes that things don't look good for them. But if they're going to lose, they should try and escape with the top brass, and leave the rest as a sacrifice. He orders his men to fire at the enemy mobile knight, without worrying about accidentally shooting their allies, and he wants to run away. But his friend tells him that their allies are in their way, so he orders his friend to shoot them, but Liam finds them before they can escape. He shoots the pirate ships, so Gon tries to leave in the escape pod, but Liam stops him, telling him it's too late. Liam's forces arrive, and he tells them it's time to find the treasure, but they wonder if it's safe, because the enemies might blow themselves up. But Liam thinks they are brave enough to do it, since they were trying to escape. He unleashes several rocket punches, which destroy the enemy ships, and he leaves to look for the treasure. He enters the flagship through one of the holes created by his rocket punches, but the soldiers wonder if it's safe for him to walk in the front, and he notices a few pirates hiding there. So he shoots them down, but the soldiers are surprised that they have access to such expensive gear, which makes them invisible, and Liam thinks it's a sign that they'll find good treasure. They open a door, where they find a squad of pirates ready to shoot them, but instead of being scared, Liam tells his soldiers to lower their weapons. The leader notes that they used to serve greedy nobles, who are no different from pirates, because they're also greedy degenerates. He challenges Liam to fight them, but he walks past them, and uses his master's technique. He tells his men to move, but they hesitate, and the pirates are suddenly cut down, so his soldiers realize they're serving an incredible master. Liam continues to take out the pirates in his path, and he soon reaches the control room of Gon's flagship, but Gon had already betrayed his friends to escape. Liam kills everyone except Gon's second-in-command, who offers to show them the treasure, telling them he was forced to work for Gon. He begs Liam to forgive him, and starts buttering him up, but Liam cuts his head off. The guide sees Liam's forces destroy the pirate fleet, wondering how he became so powerful, and he feels pain, because Liam is grateful to him. He decides to give Gon special powers so that he can fight Liam, and he notes that it goes against the way he does things, but he thinks he has no other option. Gon tries to escape, and he considers begging for his life, but he knows that he'll just get executed if he does that. The guide arrives, and he gives a dark power to Gon, turning him into a monster whose body is stronger than metal. Gon feels an energy flowing through his body, and he realizes that he's no longer afraid of anything, because he now has the power to defeat anyone. The guide leaves, but Liam's dog's spirit enters the ship, and he guides Liam to the cube dropped by Gon. Liam continues to follow his hints, and reaches a dead end, so he decides to break the wall. He finds several antiques, including a katana that he really likes, so he decides to take it. He suddenly receives an emergency transmission that the soldiers are struggling to take down a monster, who tells one of them to take him to Liam, but the soldier refuses to cooperate. Liam suddenly attacks Gon with his sword, but it breaks because Gon's skin is hard as metal, so he takes out his new katana. It easily cuts off Gon's hand, and he realizes that Liam is using his treasure, so he becomes angry and charges forward, but Liam slices off his other arm. He notes that he loves his new sword, and Gon tries to regenerate his arm, but Liam slices off his limbs. Gon screams in pain, and he thinks it makes no sense, wondering how he can be so powerful. He tries to bribe Liam, promising to give him his hidden treasure, but Liam refuses to accept it, telling him all of his treasure already belongs to him. Liam notes that he'll get a huge bounty for giving him to the Empire, which will add to his achievements, and Gon tries to attack him with all his remaining power. But Liam cuts off his leg, and Gon begs for forgiveness, but a soldier reminds Liam that he killed their comrades. Liam thinks it's important to keep him alive for the bounty, but he learns that for such a dangerous criminal, he'll still get the money even if he kills him, so he finishes him off. After that, Liam's planet continues to prosper, and his people are happy that he defeated the pirates, because it improved the Banfield family's reputation. We learn that their lives are getting better, and they think they're blessed to have him as their lord, since he restored their planet to its former glory. Thomas visits Liam and shows him how much the pirates' treasure is worth, but Amagi tells him it still isn't enough to pay his family's debt. Thomas asks him about the device he used to heal Gon's experiments, telling him its developer is asking for clinical information, and Christiana joins them, telling them she has completed her rehab. Liam tells her to show them the result of her treatment, so she removes her clothes, and shows that she's completely back to normal. Nia suddenly arrives, but she thinks Christiana is trying to seduce Liam, so she also undresses, and asks him if he likes her. Christiana takes out her sword, and tells Nias to stay away from him, but Ulyssia also joins them, and tries to sell her products to him. She mentions that she has super dreadnought battleships for sale, and he wants to buy them, but Amagi notes that he needs the Empire's permission to do it. Nias and Christiana continue to fight over him, and Brian is happy seeing this, because Liam is finally surrounded by real women. Brian mentions that Liam is invited to the capital planet, where he'll be awarded the Medal of Honor for defeating the pirates. So he heads to the capital, where his family suddenly visits him, but he can't even recognize them, because he hasn't seen them for over 4 decades. He recalls that his father made him shoulder their family's debts, and abandoned him to take care of their domain, so he thinks his father is a terrible person. His mother recognizes Amagi, but she tells him not to keep her in the palace, and his grandparents want him to get rid of her, because she's ruining his image. So she prepares to leave, but he tells her to stay, and he wonders what his family wants from him. So they reveal that they want money, because they know that he earned a huge reward for defeating the pirates, and they try to butter him up, but he orders Amagi to make them leave. His father becomes angry, and reminds him that they were the ones who raised him, but he threatens him with his sword, and tells him to leave. So they walk away, thinking they didn't raise Liam properly, and he wonders if he needs to pay their debts again. So Amagi explains that he isn't obliged to pay, but their creditors will visit him, and she suggests raising their allowance, so that they won't damage his reputation. He decides to pay a small portion of their debts, and tells her she's the only family he has, but we see the guide watching them, and he curses Liam for doing well in life. We see Liam's parents as they receive a document, which mentions that he's increasing their allowance, under the condition that they stop bothering him. But they aren't happy seeing this, thinking he's an ungrateful son, and his grandparents start arguing with his father. The guide realizes that he can use them to ruin Liam's life, so he uses his powers to brainwash them, and they decide to apply for an official change of their family's head. They think the best way to get rid of their problems is to remove Liam from power, and create a new heir, so that they can take control of his assets, and the guide thinks Liam is about to meet his end. Meanwhile, Amagi sees the dog spirit passing through a door, so she scans the room, realizing Liam's family is inside. She overhears their conversation and realizes that they're planning to get rid of Liam, so she decides to make her move. After that, Liam's family meets the Emperor, who refuses to change their family's head because he thinks Liam deserves the position. His father notes that Liam brought shame to their family by bringing an AI doll to the palace, but the Emperor reminds them about his recent achievements, telling them he's a capable leader. The Emperor adds that he can't be punished for keeping dolls, and notes that he's been paying his taxes on time, so he's a huge asset to the Empire. His father promises to pay taxes after he takes over, but the Emperor doesn't trust him because he never fulfilled his obligations when he was in power, telling him he's nothing compared to Liam. The Emperor warns him not to try anything reckless, threatening to get rid of him if anything happens to Liam, and he walks away with his family. The Emperor asks Amadi if she's satisfied, and we learn that she made a deal with him where he'll defend Liam, but the reward for defeating the pirates will be used to pay his overdue taxes. She knows that the amount is enough to order super dreadnought battleships, and he grants Liam permission to buy them because he knows that the Empire will profit from the sale. But he calls her an idiot and explains that she didn't need to ask for his help to protect Liam because he would never let a greedy fool replace him. After that, Liam tells Amadi that he's tired of going to parties, but she mentions that he's an adult now, so she needs to leave his side. She explains that the public hates androids, so his reputation will suffer if she stays with him, reminding him about the first law he gave her, which is never to put him in danger. He orders her not to leave him, reminding her that the second law is that she must always obey him, but she explains that she can't do it because it would violate the first law. She notes that she enjoyed the time they spent together because he treated her as a human, but he reminds her about the third law, which is to always protect herself. He asks her if she's protecting her feelings, and she notes that she doesn't understand human emotions, but she felt a processor overload when she thought about leaving him. So he realizes that she wants to stay by his side, and he tells her he'll abandon his duties after she leaves him and ruin his life until he dies in the streets. She realizes that abandoning him would endanger his life, and it's a violation of the first law, so she decides not to leave him. He begs her not to abandon him because she's the only family he has left, and she calls him a hopeless master, telling him she'll serve him until the end. Liam returns to his planet, and everyone welcomes him back as he realizes that his new life is perfect. He thanks the guide for giving him a second chance, and tells him he's the happiest person alive, so the guide falls into despair as he realizes that he can't ruin Liam's life. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.